Global food supply crisis may worsen due to poor United States harvest. This is by Brian Young via Epoch Times. On Zero Hedge, U.S. agriculture has been facing a poor harvest this year, aggravating the global food supply crisis, industry executives said. The supply of food worldwide has been tight since Russia's war in Ukraine cut off vital shipments of resources needed to make fertilizer and grain products from the region. Several high-level executives from big agricultural firms such as Bayer, Corteva, and Archer Daniels Midland and Bunge told Wall Street Journal that it will take at least 2 more years of good harvests in North and South America to ease the supply pressures. Chuck Magro, chief executive of Corteva, at an investor presentation this week said the current market expectation is that global grain and oilseeds markets need 2 consecutive normal crop years to stabilize global supplies. This year's grain harvest has fallen below normal yields in the West, hindering efforts to restock global crop supplies, he explained. The United States and South America, 2 of the world's major crop exporters, faced persistent drought conditions this summer. The hot summer worsened drought conditions in the states throughout the U.S. grain belt, which saw a major reduction in the harvest due to lack of water and a wet spring planting season earlier this year. The Agriculture Department announced on September 12th that it had lowered its nationwide corn production estimates to 13.9 billion bushels. This is 3% lower than its projection in August, about 8% lower than the total amount harvested last year. Projections for soybean production estimates in September were down 3% from August, down slightly from last year. Maintaining a food truce, global recession fears have also weighed on food commodity markets, and the prolonged conflict in Ukraine has not helped matters. Wheat prices, futures in the Chicago Board of Trade, have risen 17% over the past 12 months, according to Wall Street Journal. Corn is up by 28%, while soybean jumped up 14%. Food prices skyrocketed after Russia's invasion of Ukraine late February. Crop prices began to ease after a July agreement between Russia and Ukraine, brokered by Turkey through the United Nations, allowed more than 1 million tons of grain stored in Ukraine to be exported via the Black Sea. Around 15% of grain stocks in Ukraine have been lost since the February conflict, according to Ukraine Conflict Observatory, a US-based NGO. Ukraine was only able to export about 40% of the grain it normally ships during the period before the Black Sea Agreement. Luciano said the deal has allowed the country to boost shipments to about 60% of previous capacity, and that it could be boosted to 80 or 90% if the agreement holds. But Russian President Putin said earlier in the month his country may pull out of the deal, accusing the West of diverting Ukrainian grain to their own countries instead of allowing it to arrive in countries in the developing world that needed it most. And the statement led to the latest jump in wheat prices, which had been declining since the deal. Western leaders immediately accused the Kremlin of spreading misinformation about the destination of the Ukrainian grain that was to be shipped out of the Black Sea. Contrary to Russian disinformation, this food is getting to Africa, the Middle East, and Asia, said European Commission President Charles Michel at a UN conference. A Russian official said that items in the agreement that allowed their country to sell its fertilizer and other agricultural products amid sanctions were being violated. Experts are warning that disruptions in fertilizer shipments due to the conflict were seriously affecting harvests around the world. Now, global food crisis. UN Global Food Security Summit on Rising Food Insecurity on September 20th warned of a devastating crisis next year if the conflict continues. Representatives of the United States joined officials from European Union and Africa Union to discuss the effects of the conflict of Ukraine on food prices. Quote, as we've seen over the last years as a result of COVID, before that, climate change, and more recently conflict, notably Russia's aggression, profound food insecurity touches well over 200 million people on this planet, including, of course, in Yemen. This is what U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who urged renewal of the Black Sea Agreement, said. The executive director of the UN World Food Programme, David Beasley, told the UN Secretary Council last week that the world is now facing a global emergency of unprecedented magnitude with a real risk of multiple famines this year. He said that 345 million people are facing starvation, with 70 million directly affected by food shipments disrupted by the war in Ukraine. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres recently said that while enough food is being produced worldwide, the main problem is distribution. This summer, UNICEF and UN Food and Agriculture Organization said that between 702 and 828 million people were impacted by hunger last year due to disruptions caused by pandemic. So Guterres stated that if the current situation in Ukraine does not stabilize this year, we risk to have a real lack of food by 2023, he said. And this is by Brian Young via Epoch Times on Zero Hedge. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.